In today's video, we're going to learn how to measure objects using cubes. So today we'll need some cubes. You'll need some as you are asked to measure a few things around the room as well with the video. But first, let's talk about how we're going to measure with cubes. So in first grade, we focus on using what we call non-standard units of measure. Sometimes when you hear adults measuring, they might talk about inches or centimeters or feet. I mean, we'll get to that eventually in older grades, but primarily in first grade, we use non-standard units of measure, so easier things to measure with, like cubes. And so when we're looking at our cubes, a couple of things you need to know. When I am measuring with a cube, I am going to use this flat edge here. I'm not going to take into account this part up here that sticks out that helps me connect it. I'm just looking at this face of the cube right here, this flat part here. So when I'm measuring, I'm going to ignore this if it goes past. I'm just going to look kind of right here where the cube's edge is. So let's take a look at an object and see if we can measure it. Let's say I have a paperclip and I want to know how many cubes long the paperclip is. So remember, length is from measuring from one point, one edge, along the side to the other to see how long it is. So a couple of things you need to know when you are measuring using cubes or any other object is we need to make sure that you have it lined up at the edge, just like we were doing when we were comparing objects. So if I put these together, I can see they're right lined up together so that they start at the same spot. And then I need to make sure that there are no gaps in between. So when I'm using cubes to measure, I'm going to make sure they're snapped together. If I put my cubes along like this and say, oh, my clothespin is 3 cubes long, well, I'm missing this part in the middle. So that's not taking into account those spaces that are in between. So that means that my paper or my clothespin is actually longer than that. So when I'm measuring, I need to make sure that I am snapping my cubes together so that there are no spaces. So see that they are nice and smushed together. See how there's a big difference? Now there's room for a whole nother cube. Now when I'm measuring with a cube, I want to make sure that it's in a straight line and that all of the cubes are snapped together, but I also want to look at how close I can get it from end to end. Now everything's not going to be perfect. I'll kind of switch this so you can see. When I'm looking at this clothespin and the cubes, if I were to add another cube onto the end, the cube would go way past the edge of the clothespin. So I'm going to do just the closest that I can get without going really far past. So this looks about good. The edges are just about lined up. Again, it's not going to be perfect when we're measuring everything with cubes, but we're going to get as close as we can. So it's lined up from one end to the other and goes just as far as the clothespin. So I'm going to count how many cubes I used. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I used 4 cubes. So I can say that the clothespin is 4 cubes long. Let's try another object. Let's say I want to measure this glue bottle. So I'm going to do the same thing when I am measuring the glue bottle. Now, not everything's nice and flat. This clothespin had a really nice flat edge for us to line up with. And this is to a certain point, but notice that it goes past here to the tip. So we're going to have to use that imaginary line we kind of talked about when we were comparing objects and do our best to get as close as we can. So I'm going to start a cube and I'm going to line it up just like when I was comparing objects. And I'm going to add some more. Now I could add them one at a time, but looking at it, I can tell I can add quite a few more. And so I might add a couple at a time and just kind of line them up as I go. So keep in mind that some people that don't know a lot about measuring might say that this glue bottle is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cubes long. But what they're forgetting is that part that goes past. So part of the glue bottle includes this part here. So I'm going to need a couple of more cubes to add on. So I'll keep going until I have that imaginary line. And if I need to make myself a line to go past, just so I can kind of see about where it goes. That could be helpful as well at first. You'll get the hang of it as you continue to look. So I'm getting closer, but not quite to the end. And here I see that I'm at that dotted line. If I put another cube on, it would go past the end of the glue, so I don't want to put another one on. If I took one away, then there'd be that really big gap right here, and so I'm missing part of the length of that. So this looks just about perfect. That's as close as I can get with the glue bottle. So it's lined up at one edge. There's no spaces in between, and it's in a nice straight line. So it goes from one end to the other, the same as the glue bottle. Now I can count how many cubes I did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the glue bottle is 8 cubes long. I'm going to give you a couple of objects that I want you to measure, and then I'll measure mine as well. So one thing that I know we all have in this classroom is we all have glue sticks. And if you don't have one in your materials in your crayon box or pencil box, then you know where in the room to find one. So I want you to go and find a glue stick and a big pink eraser, because we are going to practice measuring both of those objects together. So pause the video now, go get these two things, and I want you to get some cubes as well because you will need those. So pause the video, go get those objects, and come back and let's measure them together. All right, now you should have some cubes. You should have a pink block eraser, and you should have a glue stick. So let's start with the block eraser. So I'm going to start with just a couple of cubes. I need to make sure I'm lining it up. Okay, get that far. Now I want you to pause the video and you see how many cubes long you think your eraser is, and then I'll do it and we'll check. Now that you've measured yours, let's see what I get. So I'm going to add a couple more cubes on. And remember, I want to go the best that I can from one end to another without going over or without leaving a gap. So this looks just about perfect right here. They're as close as I get. If I'm going to put another one, it goes way past. I'll switch that so you can see. If I put another one, it's going to go way past. And if I take one away, then it's not going to reach the end. So I need that one right here. So if I look at my eraser, how many cubes long is my eraser? You're right, 1, 2, 3. So yours should be about the same. If yours isn't, just make sure yours is lined up. Some erasers may be bigger than others, but they're about all the same size. Let's try one more thing together. We also got a glue stick. Please make sure you have a regular size glue stick, not a big jumbo one, because those ones will look a little bit different. So again, we're going to look at how long the glue stick is. So I'm going to turn it on its side, and I'm going to take some cubes and we'll line it up on one end. I want you to pause the video and see how long your glue stick is, and then I'll show you how long mine is. Okay, now that you have measured yours and know how long your glue stick is, let's take a look at mine. So I've lined it up the best that I can, got the closest that I can lined up from one end to the other. If I added another one, then it would go way past, and we don't want that. So we'll keep it right here, the closest that we can get. So my glue stick is 4 cubes long. So you can use cubes to measure pretty much anything around the room. Just keep in mind that you want to have it lined up at one end and go the closest you can to the end of the object without going super past. Make sure also that your cubes are stuck together, because if I don't put them together and I leave the spaces, it's going to give me a different amount than I would before. So they have to be snapped